as Eli Manning stays on his feet. It is caught by
Tyree. Welcome to Catch the Moment podcast. I'm your host, David Tyree. Super excited to have y'all join us again. We are back every week taking you through that process, that journey that's delivering you to your next moment. This week, I'm super excited. I got none other than New York's own Justin Ashley of Ashley Racing. Hey, thanks for checking in with me, man.
Appreciate you having me on, man. I heard so many good things about this podcast. It's finally time I'm here.
Brad, listen, if I could have had you on as the inaugural guest, why not? But nah, man, I really appreciate you saying that. Means a lot, man. Like, listen, so of course, you got to do your little Google search, and I'm like, bro, 27 years old, Ashley Racing is here. Ashley Development is actually a real thing. So, you're not even 30. You're recognized within your sport that I don't know much about, so you're going to give me some education here, right? What is your most cherished accomplishment today?
What's crazy is I'm 27, right? I fix and flip houses. I'm a professional race car driver, and it's great. But when you think back to what your most cherished moment is, it comes from all the work and stuff that it takes to actually get to that point, right? So it really all started when I was 11, and my most cherished moment to date is probably my first ever professional race win, right? It's like when you won the Super Bowl, right? It's like it means everything to you. That's the work that you put in to get to that point. So to actually see that realization and actually be there and be in that moment, that was amazing.
Now, how old were you with that first win?
It was a few years ago, so I was about 25. 25? Yeah.
I remember reading exactly about that. So, I've obviously learned that your dad was into drag racing. Yeah. Now, I know I could imagine the emergence of sports like drag racing in light of, just where we are in media today, social media, and the growth. What has been your visual, and what really inspired you to actually get involved in kind of following those footsteps?
Yeah, so I grew up around the racetrack.
Sure.
Right? My father raced, so I was at the track when I was 9, 10 years old. But what attracted me to the sport was the people. Right? It's really a family atmosphere and a team atmosphere. So these cars go 0 to 330 miles per hour in under 4 seconds.
Bro.
I mean, yeah, right? So when you think about that, and it's the speed, but how about the acceleration, how quickly they get to that 300 plus miles per hour?
See, that's ridiculous. Yeah. So, we over here rejoicing over Cheetah. Cheetah's down there with the Miami Dolphins.
Right,
And y'all going 300 miles an hour on the track.
Right.
Now, the first question I have is how long, I know the races are done in like 4 seconds, right?
Yeah.
Under 4 seconds or under. What's the actual distance to the race?
So the race itself is 1,000 feet.
Wow, bro. So
1,000 feet.
So that's 300 yards plus.
Yep.
3 football fields.
Yep, 3 football fields in under 4 seconds.
Whoa. That is, y'all talk about getting somewhere fast.
Yeah.
All right, so, you grew up winning it. That's a neat thing. It's kind of like looking at the ball boy. I think Larry Fitzgerald has a similar story of growing up around the sport, ends up becoming one of the most dominant wide receivers in the sport. So it sounds like there's some themes within it. Was there ever any question that this was what you wanted to do? Was there ever any interest as you're evolving as a young man and making your own decisions?
Yeah, so as I was evolving, as I was growing up, I was going to school, I went to college, and I was trying to figure out, okay, what do I love? What do I want to do with the rest of my life? And I just kept coming back to this one sticking point, which is drag racing. And, it's funny because growing up, I was around the track, but my father basically was like, listen, Justin, you don't need to do this. You shouldn't be racing. You should focus on your education and everything else. I'm like, listen, Dad, sometimes this is just the way it is. I fell in love with this sport, right? Just like you love football, the same way.
Yeah.
So I always knew I needed to be involved in some capacity. And as I got older, I realized how much I needed that competitiveness, how much I wanted to be involved with the people, wanted to be involved in the sport for the rest of my life. And each day, literally, I learned more and more about the sport itself.
All right, that's super dope. Okay, all right, so we got to ask every guest when we come. We try to ask you early, right? And this is, we build in this database. So, where were you and what were your thoughts when you actually saw the helmet catch almost 15 years?
I remember, it's funny you say that because I bet you everyone asks you about it too, right?
That's usually what, they ask me what I was thinking. I'm more interested in what you were thinking.
Right, so I was thinking, I remember exactly where I was. I was watching the Super Bowl with my family, and I remember the whole thing like it was yesterday. I remember Eli Manning escaping the sack.
No doubt.
Rolling out, throwing it, and I just remember watching you go up. I think was it Rodney Harrison who was on your back?
No doubt. He's not my biggest fan or friend.
I could imagine why.
Yeah,
right? So I remember seeing that, and my first thought was, A, did this really happen? And B, did he actually just hold on to the ball?
Yeah.
Right? And then they show the replay, and they show it you actually physically putting it against the helmet.
No doubt.
But see, the part that I wonder about, which people don't think about, is, okay, he did that, right? But how did he get the opportunity to do that? What put him in a position to be able to do that? Because I know it started way before Syracuse, right? It started, I'm sure, in Pee Wee football and all that stuff, working hard to get to that point.
Well, listen, I think that's kind of what this is really all about. It's really, and we'll keep this thing going, but it's really about how are you either getting or creating the opportunities, right? And there are iconic moments for some people like yourself. You're still young in your professional career. There's going to be many more victories that may mean more than the first, but you encounter these moments of significance, but there's always this process that is delivering you there. I certainly have mine. So, when did you know? All right, so you talk about these conversations with your dad, and I'm imagining he just has to be such a big part of who you become. So when did you know, and what was that conversation like with your dad? Like, I want to drive this machine that's about to take off and go 300 miles an hour. So,
right.
Like I said, you said it was college, and you just like, is this it? Was it that moment, or were y'all having previous discussions?
Well, I need to preface it by saying that I could not have this conversation with my mother because she wants me to play golf or tennis and not go 300 miles per hour. So I had to make sure I had my father first. Of course, see, everything's a little bit strategic.
So that was strategic. So you had to position yourself, get an investor, right?
Yeah, that's all. Just get somebody who's on my side. So I grew up around it, right? So I started racing when I was 11, but I was more focused on my education. I was playing stick and ball sports at the time.
Yeah.
And then after school, basically, I sat down with my father and said, listen, this is the journey that I want to take. You've been there, done that. Help me, provide me with some guidance. How do you think the best way to go about it is to get to this professional level? So the way I kind of equate it is like minor league baseball, right? Nice. So there's single A, double A, triple A. Yeah. There's all these different racing levels. So you start at a low level and work your way up. And, 5-6 years later, I'm racing professionally now. But when we sat down, the conversation was like, hey, Dad, this is what I want to do. And my dad's like, you sure? You sure you want to do this? You want to think twice about this? I'm like, listen, this is what I want to do. And I'm fortunate, right? I feel very fortunate to have him in my life. And he's my biggest fan. He really is. He's guided me, helped me get to this position.
That's so dope to hear you say that. I guess we were having a little chat offline, and my oldest son is 20 years old. He's dynamic. He's intelligent. And but like you said, you found something that you were involved in, ingratiated in, and you made a decision, and you had those people. So when I consider something anything on the high performance level, it's usually taking other factors involved outside of our own ambition, grit, and determination. And it sounds like your dad was a big part of it. So, all right, so pivot, like I said, here I am. I'm 42. I'm just kind of figuring out my business imprint, getting into the marketplace. I've been in sports my whole life. You're 27. Ashley Racing is on board. But where does this whole real estate thing like you kind of caught me off guard with that one, bro.
It's such a loaded question because it was like one of the principles I had going into my racing career was, I never want to be dependent upon racing. I want to be involved in business so I understand. It'll help me better understand the business aspect of racing, but also I want to establish another career for myself outside of racing. Now, with that being said, racing, and I love it. This makes me so happy. It's really taken over my life, right? Which is, I find myself waking up in the morning, going to work on real estate. That lasts about like a half hour. But then the rest of the work is on the racing side and the business side of racing. So it still has a place in my life. I still love real estate, right? You said now you're into business. So I love the business of real estate, but I also, part of me feels like I do need to be all in on what I'm doing right now. And, we have sponsors, we have partners, people that we need to represent as a team. So now a lot of my focus is really on the racing side.
That's good. It's good to hear you say, because, if you check in your website, you got the Fix, Flipping Fuel, which is a nice little series. I know that was a few years ago. And but like I said, number one, what I saw was a young man who was interested in, we hear the term diversification. Even from a stock portfolio standpoint, it's like you should be diversified, not have everything vested in one area. But ultimately, if you're really going to maximize an area of high performance, you recognize the need to get narrow, right? So not taking away any opportunities, but I can see from the look in your eye. You got that eye of the tiger, like, nah, I'm trying to be the GOAT.
Well, it's funny. Well, that's what people say. Like, what's your goal in racing? I say, and you could probably appreciate this, right? I say, I want to be the best ever.
Yeah.
So they look at me like I have 10 heads. I'm like, for me, like, why else would I be here? Like, this is what I want to do. This is my goal. I want to be the best to ever do it. I expect to win everything. Now, it's not easy. No. You know, I can win every race you attend, but just like, you know, when you're running around, I'm sure you expect to catch the football.
No doubt.
It's the same thing.
And right? I didn't get a lot of balls thrown my way, you know.
Special teams, though. That's
there you go.
Everybody has their role.
I literally expected to make every tackle. Right. Like, you know, in my mind. And of course, there's a part of the practical side where you're like, well, I'm not going to make everyone, but I really expect to make every tackle.
Right.
And it's you know, so something in you, there's a mental dynamic in relation to high performance that you're wired to ensure that you're getting the highest results and highest return. So, you know, let me flip back because I'm always interested in, like, you know, the mental framework of any person in life and business and kind of the mindset dynamic. What is, you know, like, so you're still young in life. What has been the biggest either frustration or pain point that you've had to weather up to this point? You know, like, whether it's your team or, you know,
right.
So like, how have you had to work through some of those things that's building some of your character and where you're going?
I mean, you said it. Honestly, it's a great subject because the physical aspect of driving is one thing, but how about the mental aspect?
Sure.
Right. And going through all that you have to go through to build that character. So, I mean, for me, there's been plenty of times where, you know, I look myself in the mirror and I'm like, man, is this really worth the journey? You know what I mean? Is this really worth it? Because you go through their struggles where, you know what, I'm not driving as well as I want to. Or I get up in a big situation and I don't do my job. I remember I landed my first real big sponsor last year in 2021, and we made a huge deal out of it, right? For all the media and all that's part of the deal. Cool. They came out to the racetrack. We had a press conference, and I went out there all jacked up, all excited. Dude, I blew it, like, right away, right? So, like, this is the biggest race of my life at that point, and I just did not do my job, right? It cost my team the race. And what I had to realize was, and it took me a good, 24 to 48 hours to realize, you know what, this didn't happen to me, it happened for me. Right? Look at it that way. Like, how am I going to take this experience now?
Come on, audience,
and learn from
it.
Yeah. And learn from it. So, I think, experiences like that, let's be honest, they suck. Right? They suck in the moment. They are brutal, but it's what you do with it that puts you in a position mentally and physically to be better at it next time.
Bro, that's huge, right? Because it's not. And I think, we're in the age where everybody's showing so much of their journey. And there's a lot more transparency these days, but everything's not always a conversation. And I found it the same way. Some of my story has been told in relation to the helmet catch, but the Friday before was the worst practice I ever had as a professional.
No kidding.
Yeah, literally. So, I mean, trust me, it's a well-told story. Eli likes to actually throw bar. I dropped everything wrong. I mean, like, now here's the deal. I blame it all on Pleisco Burris because,
of course,
he was supposed to be in practice. You know what I'm saying? But I ended up taking all his starting reps. Okay. Dropping all the passes. But at the end of the day, if you don't have that, wash, rinse, repeat mentality, waking up, starting each day afresh, knowing that you can deliver the dime when the lights are on, it's going to be hard to deliver. If you don't learn from that experience, have that moment of sobriety, then we're gonna miss opportunities, man. So that's super duper. Wow, who I'm assuming that dad. Like, so who are some of your inspirations, whether it's in the sport or the people that you draw from, even on a daily, weekly basis, that kind of just keep you motivated, keep you on track? Who are some of those people that are filling your tank? Yeah,
so there's a guy named Antron Brown, who's my teammate, and ironically, he's cousins with Troy Vincent.
Get out of here.
No kidding, right? And he's Troy Vincent's running the NFLPA, right?
Yeah. Well, he runs the league on the operating side. So he's the VP of of all things.
Right.
Top 3 exec. Yeah.
Right. So they're really close. So actually, when Antron first started racing, it was Troy Vincent's team. He raced the bikes and everything. So Antron and Troy are very close.
Get out of here.
Small world, right?
So that's my guy. He brought me in at the league office, and that's when I was doing all the
Okay. Yeah. See, so there you go. So I think it's important to have guys that you can model yourself after. So something that was important to me was watching Antron, but he's a great driver. 3 world championships. He's great at what he does, but the way he represented himself and his sponsors off the track. Because it's so important. Literally 90% of racing is business. And the other 10% is actually being out there racing. So modeling myself after a guy like that who's been an inspiration for me. And now, you know, I've been watching him growing up. Now we're teammates.
Sure.
Really, he's been somebody that I can lean on and say, listen, you know, I did not have my best day today. What happened? And you know how this goes. 9 times out of 10, I'll be like, get out of here. Forget about it. You know what I mean? That happens. Like, you have those practices. But it's all part of the deal. But he's a guy that I've been able to lean on.
That's super dope, man. Big shout out to TV. He's been keeping me in the dark on some of his
motorsports endeavors.
Yeah, some of his motorsports endeavors.
You got to ask him. You got to ask him.
I'm trying to get down on this. You know, so that's super, super dope, man. So, all right, so, bro, you know, like you're immersion in this. You're telling me about, and that's pretty interesting to hear you say 90% of it being business and 10% performance is very similar to the mental versus the physical performance. So, all right, so what is your favorite part of this entire experience?
Yeah, winning. No, I'm just kidding. That's always nice, right? That's always a nice bonus.
Let's go.
That's always a nice bonus. Right, exactly. Getting out and, like taking your helmet off and that feeling of winning and jubilation. But what I really enjoy is these, right, so we have like 12 guys on our team, right?
Sure.
And every time we take the car back after a pass, they have 45 minutes to 55 minutes to take the whole car apart and put it back together. So I mean,
this is mind-boggling.
Right.
I don't even understand it, bro.
Right. That's why I got to get you out to a race so you can see it.
I bet.
So you do all that work, and so I always say, kind of, I have the easy job, right? I'm the one who gets all the glory for whatever reason. Meanwhile, I'm the one who just gets to sit in the car and drive and enjoy it, right? So these guys. So my favorite part is watching these guys go to work on such quick turns in 90+ degree heat, and then going out there and racing and winning and seeing the satisfaction they have when you get back to see them after.
You know, forgive me for this crazy perverse statement, but when I think about your 4 seconds of fame, it's almost like, you know, ejaculating. It's like, you know, all the work that these guys are putting in all throughout the week. It's like me pursuing my wife. You know, I've been romancing her all day.
Well, since Syracuse, really.
Since Syracuse. I'm 18 years married. I got to put so much work in just to get to the end of the night. 4 seconds of fame.
4 seconds of fame. That's where I come in with my appreciate that, but no comment.
No question. Yeah. All right, so then I got to go there, bro. You're in your prime. You're driven. All right, so what is off the track look like for Justin Ashton?
It's tough, and you might have had the same deal, right? But even when you're off the track, for whatever reason, I'm just thinking about racing. You know, I mean, it's what I love, but at the same time, I think it's important to create a degree of separation. You have to have that mental edge. So focused on real estate when I'm not at the track, focused on staying physically and mentally fit. You know, I have my process that I go through to make sure I'm prepared when I do get to the track. So it's thinking about and preparing for when it is time to race, but at the same time, focusing on family. Family is very important to me. Spending time with my family and spending time doing exercise and other things to create that separation. Sure.
All right, so we talked about, you know, family, a little downtime. So I'm assuming you get a little, what are you doing? You CrossFit? You doing some weights? What you doing real quick? Let me assess your physical activity.
You're gonna say I got you to assess my physical activity, which is great. That means obviously it's not gonna be good enough. It's probably what it's gonna be.
I'm the old guy. Don't worry about it.
So the odd thing is, right, so I played football growing up, baseball, basketball. So recently, and it sounds funny, I got into racquetball.
Bro, I've always that's the little blue ball. Right?
Yeah.
I've always wanted to play racquetball.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I've always wanted to do. Watching TV, I don't know how to get to
how to figure it out. Right. So I meet a friend of mine 6 a.m. every morning, or let's say 3 times a week, right? And we play racquetball in the morning, and all that stuff for me is good for reflexes, quick twitch muscles, moving side to side, having to think on your feet and put the ball in a good position. So that's something I like. You know, that for me, that beats running on a treadmill.
Oh, man.
You know,
I hate the treadmill. We can curse the treadmill on this show.
Exactly. So, but what do you do, though? I'm sure you probably had, so is it a similar routine to what you had when you were playing, or is it leveled off and it's different?
Yeah, it's definitely leveled off. The reason why is I don't have the facilities that I had. I got a little setup in the garage, like the basics, little rack. And what I typically do is usually somewhere around twice a week, I'll have some of I got a group of men that'll join us. We'll do some high intensity training. I got a mean hill in my driveway. Hill sprints. So usually twice a week we get after it. If I get into my groove, I'll get to a CrossFit. I like to get the heart rate up.
Yeah.
And every now and then I'll hit the road and do some running. So I'll get bored quick. I'm not I'm not individually motivated to train.
Right.
I just know I got to do it for my health. So it's an easy incentive. When you got 7 kids, you got to be alive.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, you got like 7 kids to be alive for and a wife. Yeah.
I get threats from my wife like, if you die, I'll kill you. She treats me like Ike Turner. You know, I don't know if you know anything about Ike. But all right, boom. So we talked a little bit about just, you know, just how you keep your mind, your space.
Yeah.
All right, so it's always fun for me because I'm in like dad zone. My oldest son is 21. So pretty soon we kind of like feeling him out like, yo, what's your lady situation look like? So where you at right there? Like, you know, is there interest? Do you have a significant other? And I know you're obsessed about, you know, where you're at the stage of your career. What's your mindset and approach toward, I don't know, I don't want to call her a distraction. She could be the fulfillment. But what's that like?
No, and I don't think it's a distraction. I think that even if you're concentrating on racing or whatever, there has to be a healthy balance.
There you go.
There has to be a healthy balance in life. So it's kind of a loaded question right now. I'm not gonna lie, because I don't know who's gonna be watching this, but we'll just leave it at it's complicated. It's complicated for right now, but
I got it.
But you got it. You know what? Honestly, though, on that note, like I'm 27 years old. I'm traveling all over the place. Like it can very easily be a distraction if you let it be a distraction.
Oh, trust me. I've been in locker rooms. I know about the myriad of distractions. Meaning, like, listen, man. Like I call myself, I'm like a reformed hoe. You know, like, you know, I'm speaking candidly, right? So I'm a classy guy. God has cleaned me up. I'm a grown man. I'm 42-year-old. I'm 18 years married. I'm the biggest marriage advocate there is. But I know what it is to be a young man pursuing passions too. So that actually brings me to my next question. Like, what is y'all fan culture like? I mean, NASCAR is a whole nother world. You know, we see Talladega Nights and the whole world is kind of getting a peek into NASCAR. Right. You know, so what is fan culture like in drag racing?
Yeah, it's actually an interesting demographic. They are super loyal. Okay. So, you know, Toyota, for example, is one of my sponsors. If we have a fan and they're a fan of our team, they will actually go out there and buy a Toyota for themselves, and that's the car that they want. So they are super loyal to the brands that support the sport. So it's really nice, and they're passionate about the sport itself. I mean, they love going to the racetrack. They're engaged. And one of the unique part about our sport is that, and it's even different in NASCAR, you actually physically, they say every ticket is a pit pass. So all the pits are lined up and you have 25, 50,000 fans a race. They just walk up and down the pits, be able to speak with the drivers, engage with the teams. And it's a really nice family atmosphere.
I definitely got to come check y'all out.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, now you already mentioned, like, you're of the minority over here in New York, being raised in New York. So it's definitely not like a big conversation, but it's super duper intriguing. So, like, talk to me again about like where the hub is, how it's worked for you, and like, just the experience of, I think you said Indianapolis is kind of. So talk to me about just what travel can look like and how you manage that.
Yeah, so we are based out of Indianapolis, and most NHRA drag racing teams are based in Indianapolis. Okay. The reason being is because it's centrally located. Got it. So we race 22 times a year, anywhere from Pennsylvania to California. So that's where most of the shops are because it's the most convenient. It just makes the most sense. So for me, being from New York, there's been times where I thought about moving to Indianapolis, but it's not really necessary maybe in the future. But at this point in time, with the business going on and everything like that, it just makes more sense for me to stay here. But these guys, I mean, we have two 53-foot trailers that travel from race to race and carry everything. So they are the truck driver. It's a tough job, man, and he does a really good job, but it's a lot of travel, right, all around, and there's a few weekends off, but for the most part, it's a lot of racing. So
y'all gotta let me know if y'all need a mascot.
Yeah, right? You be careful. You come to the race, we'll stick you in the car. We'll see how you like it.
You gotta let me know y'all need, because I'm over here putting this stuff together. All right, is there ever been a moment where you've been scared? Like, you know, I look at the dragster coming out the gate, and I'm looking at fire.
Right. Right. I know.
Like, so has there ever been the oh crap moment? Like,
I mean, there's been the oh crap moment was when I first drove a top fuel car. So before, that's the category I race in now. That's the professional over 330 miles per hour. Before that, I drove a car that went, let's say, 280, 285 miles an hour. So I'm thinking, listen, it's 285 to 330. Come on. What's the difference, right? Dude, I got in that car. To this day, I have no idea what happened. I have zero clue about what happened. All I know is I got out of the car at the top end because my mind couldn't process what was happening quick enough. It was just happening too fast. But like sports, over time, it slows down. So that 3.7 seconds now feels like 23.7 seconds. But that was the one time where I was like, damn, Justin, like you better make sure this is what you want to do with the rest of your life because this is serious business.
This is crazy. So this is always one of my big takeaways. It's like anytime you go into something that's new, there's like a learning curve. It appears to be way more difficult than it actually is.
Right.
And for you, difficult might not be the word, but you sharing that kind of reminds me. It's like, man, I'm comfortable with high speed.
Right. Right.
Until I enter that next domain, and it's like, oh crap.
So when you went from Syracuse, right, you went straight to the Giants?
Yeah.
Okay, so you were drafted by the Giants. Okay.
As a special teams player.
Was there, that's right, was there a significant difference in, like, they talk about the speed of the game, right? Was there a significant difference, or was it like, okay, I've been there, I've done that before?
It wasn't a significant difference. I'll tell you why. Syracuse was so intense with their mental component of the game. So we were doing stuff way harder than it needed to be done.
Wow.
So the strength of my game and my approach was just being able to learn the game, learn every position, and of course, different guys, depending on their skill level, they're going to kind of like, if this guy's so good, we'll have a focus on one position. That was never my thing. I was always teaching myself concepts, teaching the game conceptually. So by the time I get to the National Football League, that was almost what was expected, and those who couldn't do that as quickly fell behind in the learning curve.
Right.
So I knew I wasn't. I mean, like honestly, the biggest jump for me was high school to college.
Yeah.
It was like you kind of like that dude in high school. You get to college, Donovan McNabb. I never, my quarterback wasn't Division I. Big shout B Roth. I love you, bro. But it was a whole nother ball game. They want you to catch it 90%. I'm catching it 78%.
Right.
It was just different. And so that red shirt was needed. It was like, and of course, taking time away from it was wild. But it's those mental modalities where you had to, it's those who can slow down the game to perform the fastest, right?
Right.
And that's really what begins to set you apart. I believe. I'm imagining it's similar. So who, in your world, like how are you assessing the competition? Like I know there's teams, right? Like you got teammates.
Oh yeah.
Little shake and bake going on and out.
Right.
No, there's no time for shake and bake in 4 seconds, right? But you got teammates, but then you got like so like who are the people that you're gunning for?
Yeah, so
has there been somebody that's been at the top? I haven't got a chance to do that deep dive. Who's been at the top? Who you gunning for? And even right now, who would you say is like I'll let you talk through it, but who's like your most heated, who you coming up against, rubbing up against often?
Yeah, so I hate to even use this word, the P word, right? But you think about like the Patriots in the NFL.
There you
like
go.
in their dynasty.
Yeah.
I don't like using that word.
You
use the Patriots
word. We can talk bad about it.
Okay,
I'll take sides.
Okay, all right. So there's this guy, and he makes it hard not to. He's a great dude, right? His name is Steve Torrance. He's won the championship 4 years in a row in our category, right? So everybody's gunning for this dude. And you got 20, 25 people gunning for this one dude, so he's got the target on his back. So there's something that just brings out the best in you when it's you versus him, your team versus his team.
Sure. It
just naturally starts to come out. But at the same time, there's so much good competition all around that you can't, for lack of a better term, take your foot off the gas. No. You really can't because there's such little margin for error, especially now. There's a large depth of competition right now with where we're at, and it's tough out there, but he's a guy in particular, like, when you go up there, you better be on your A game or he's going to take you out quick.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Like, this, to me, in my brain, I can only imagine, right? It's like, this race is over so fast.
Yeah.
The factors involved, and I heard you say this on one of your shows, like, the data, right? Like, y'all are practicing, getting reps, and it's the data. Like, what are the slip-ups that are beginning to, like, give me maybe one or two examples of, you identify what caused you to lose this race by a millisecond.
So, well, you said it, they're decided by such small margins that, and there's so many factors, so many variables that decide that small margin. I mean, so, these cars, ideally you want them to go straight, right? It's drag racing. You want to go straight and as quickly as you can, go from point A to point B, but that doesn't always happen because these cars have 11,000 horsepower. It's a lot of horsepower.
I can't register, bro.
Right.
I don't even get it.
That's what I'm saying. So 11,000. So you have to be able to control all that power and create traction, and that doesn't always happen. So a lot of times, a big part about being a driver is feel. What you feel is happening in the car.
Okay.
So a lot of times what you have to do is the tires will start to say what we call either smoking the tires or shaking the tires.
Okay.
Where the tires, instead of being round, they'll square up. And it's like going over bumps on a road. So what you have to do is you have to get off the pedal and back on the pedal. But when you do that, and it happened to me this past weekend, we were racing in Seattle, the car doesn't want to go straight anymore. Right? So when it doesn't want to go straight, and you got cars that are so explosive, and they want to go left and they want to go right, but they don't want to go straight, and you got to keep it straight, that's, those are the things that cause you to lose races by very small margins. So as a driver, you really have to have that feel and understanding for the race car.
So then it's now the intuitive nature of the racer. And this is when you earn your.
This is where you earn your keep.
This is where you earn your keep.
Right. This is where these are the little details. Like, you have to have a good understanding of the car and what happens. Like these, I'm sure like talk about like Peyton Manning, right? What separates him is having such a good understanding of the defensive coverages and understanding of the game and how all that stuff works. It's this not to that extent, but very similar with drivers, because when you get to that top 1% of drivers, it's those little things that are going to separate them.
Boom. So we gunning for Steve Torrance and the Patriots.
That's right. Exactly.
Because we don't play no game. I'm one of these dudes where until Steve comes on Catch the Moment, he's an enemy. He's immortal.
We don't use that word anymore. We don't use Steve's word anymore. We have to get him on Catch the Moment.
Nah, it's all good, bro. No, this is super dope. So the goal is obviously championship. Now, how does the season, because I'm really learning a lot about this. Also learning a lot about you. Like, is it similar in relation to like how the season goes along, and it's so many races, and you got to win X amount of races, get points?
Yeah.
Like, is it kind of on that level? Is there a big kahuna race?
It's sort of, yeah. So all the above. So there's basically, the way it works is there's 22 races.
Yep.
And based on how you do it, each race you get allotted a certain number of points.
Yeah.
So we run the first 16 races of the year, and the teams that are in the top 10 in points make what we call the countdown or the playoffs.
There we go.
So everyone else behind the top 10 is cut off. You can't win the championship anymore. But the teams that are in the top 10 after those 6 races have a 6-race playoff. So all those points get reset. And it's pretty much start from scratch, start from the beginning.
Playoff time.
That's
Playoff
right.
time. I like it.
You familiar with that?
I'm
yeah,
familiar.
That's right. Yeah.
I played 7 years, and we missed the playoffs. I think we made the playoffs 3 or 4 times in my 7 years.
Did you play for Tom Coughlin all 7 years?
My rookie year was Jim Fossil.
Oh, it was Jim Fossil. Okay.
Yeah, Jim Fossil was an interesting cat. But big shout out to, rest in peace, Jim Fossil, because not only was he the head coach that drafted me, I was out of pocket as a rookie in the NFL. Like low character, not to be trusted. But you know what? He's 23 years old. And sometimes I think we have the wrong expectations about young men. Meaning and guess what? When you arrive in certain places, you have to be a steward of. You're talking about your sponsorships,
right? These
relationships. There's money on the table for different people. And sometimes just our immaturity, we can't really comprehend that. As in our current NFL space, you got a far more aggressive situation with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
But that is these examples where their lives intermingle with the society in a negative way. So I was far from that, but I definitely had my own set of issues. Thank God it was pre-social media.
Right.
But, just continue to speak toward that. So talk to me right now. At what stage, is it playoff time? I'm actually still learning this, and I want to really pay more attention moving forward. When is it playoff time, and when is it championship time?
Yeah, so right now we're 13 races into the season.
Got it.
So we have 3 races left before it's cut off and it's playoff time. Now, the biggest, like you said, the big kahuna race, there is one big kahuna race in there, and that's in Indianapolis.
What's the name of it?
It's called the U.S. Nationals.
The U.S. Nationals. Be on the lookout for Justin Ashley at the U.S. Nationals. My dog is gearing up.
That's right.
I'm on the hype train.
That's right. So we have the U.S. Nationals coming up, and after the U.S. Nationals, it's cut off. It's playoff time, top 10, bring your best or go home. So that's when it gets really exciting, and that's when it's really fun to be out there racing, because you don't have to change anything. You naturally feel that kind of uptick in energy. Yeah. And you feel it. You feel the culture change, and everything's on the line. So that's when really the best drivers, the best teams come out.
I freaking love it. All right, so you got your daily disciplines in relation to becoming the best drag racing team. Obviously, your role, is it's not as simple, but it's almost like a jockey in a like the jockey gets no credit, but I think within your world you get some credit, right?
Right.
But you are taming that beast,
Yeah.
to become the best team, right? Like, but so I'm interested the intuitive part of this thing. Like, who are the unsung heroes, right? Like, who are the unsung heroes in the sport that really, like, of course there's pit crews and stuff like that, but who are the truest unsung heroes maybe within this sport?
Yeah, I mean, I think, right, like you said, number one is the pit crew because of how hard they work. I mean, they work so hard, and I go in there and get all the credit, which to me is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right?
I know you take care of them.
I get it. Yeah, you got to take care of them, right? You got to make sure that they're taken care of. So they're the unsung heroes, but what people don't realize is the sponsorships and the value of those relationships, because without our sponsors, we wouldn't be racing. It's just not possible because in this sport, there is a financial element to it. And, our sponsor, for example, we have a sponsor, Phillips Connect.
Sure.
They're our primary sponsor. They make technology, it's called smart trailer technology, for all these large fleets that they put on trailers. So, TPMS, tire pressure monitoring systems, cargo cameras, GPS tracking. And the reason they're the unsung heroes is because they're involved with us for a reason, because it generates business for them.
Excellent.
They don't just put their name on the side of the car. They come out to the racetrack. They bring clients that they have. They bring potential clients to the racetrack, and they're able to get business done that way. So without Phillips Connect, without these sponsors, it's not happening.
I love it. We can't peel out 330 miles an hour in 4 seconds.
That's right.
All right, so what's the legacy, right? Like, I'm over here, I'm looking at you, 27 years old, on the scene, in the middle of, you're kind of like beginning to reach your peak and prime, like peacocking, dog. You're getting great things done. But like I said, we know you're going to be a winner. What do you want the legacy as you're building this thing to be?
I mean, I think the legacy has to be about not only what you did on the track, but the team that you built off the track. And that's something that's important to me. I always wanted to represent my sponsors and have our team represent our sponsors in the best capacity.
Sure.
And be a good representative for the sport, because you can only drive for so long. I want to drive for the rest of my life, but it's important for me to leave that legacy. You know what? I left the sport better than how it was when I got into the sport. And I think that's important. I think it sets a good influence for a younger generation that's getting into the sport, that you are a representative of the sport itself, and you have to carry yourself the right way. So that's something that's always been principle-based for me, something that's important.
Bro, I love every bit of this, man. It's clear that you're fast out the gate, but you got the long game in mind.
Yeah.
Right? And that couldn't be more admirable. Justin, anything you want to leave this dope audience with, like any mantra, any good word, any lesson that you've learned that you've held to be valuable? Come on, give me one last thing before we outro.
One last lesson. You could probably give a lesson. I'm going to give a lesson. You give a lesson too? Is that how we're going to do it? Spit off each other?
Let's spit.
Okay, all right. So, for me, right, I think it's important that people realize that no matter what you do in life, like, you're playing football, you're racing, there's a physical aspect of it, whether you're running a business, but there's also a mental aspect of it.
Sure. And
I think that's very undervalued and underappreciated is, you could play football and go work out 5-6 times a week in preparation, but if your mental side isn't right, what's the difference? The results are not going to show on the field. So my whole thing is you got to put that work in, not only physically, but you got to put that work in mentally to be successful.
That's a bar. That's a bar right there. So I'm going to piggyback off of this. One of my biggest things is transparency. So this past weekend, I came back from the Juice Jam, annual meeting on a franchise unit. And to your point, I was spent. Now, it wasn't the meeting, it was just life. Life was closing in. Call it the wake of COVID in 2 years, opening the business, 7 kids, everything. It was something that I emotionally hadn't felt, I don't know, ever, because I'm a go-getter.
Yeah.
But when I got off that plane, I had nothing. Now, there's 2 things that you could do. I got so many goals and ambitions. And so the message that I'm going to kind of end with is, it's not just the self-care conversation, kind of piggybacking off this mental space, is that we have to take a moment to recognize our humanity in the midst of what we're trying to accomplish and where we're trying to go. You'll never be able to get great done without you being one. I mean, like, without you being whole as a human, as an individual, and ultimately being in position to care for the things and for the people that you care about. So, hey, the catch the moment bars, we're going to keep this in that mental health space. what they say, take care of your mind, take care of the things that matter most, so that every single day you can deliver the dime and be your best. And one day you can get out the gate again, 300 miles an hour, like Justin Ashley. Bro, I can't thank you enough for stopping in, sharing your journey. This is just the beginning, man. I look forward to watching you continue to do great things, bro.
Anytime, man. I really appreciate having me on. Thank you.
Oh, so listen, we're here. I hope y'all got every single dime that my man is. He's tuned in. He's locked in. His process has been from the foundation. Take advantage of what this looks like. The people, your ecosystem that you live in right now that you could benefit from. Ask the questions that you can position yourself to be your optimal you. That's what Justin did. That's what I did. I took an assessment of my environment as a young man, and I chose football as my path. What's your path? Well, I just know that the world is full of opportunities, and you can catch your moment right now. So I want to thank y'all for tuning in every week. We'll be back. Make sure y'all check in, comment, subscribe, share on every platform. Catch the moment. See you next week.